I had been a teacher of transcendental meditation in my 20s. And so I was one of the people who bought into the paradigm of living in the transcendent. And that way I could escape all my suffering and ills and this kind of stuff. So I was coming from that point of view, but I think I had grown in my own life, in my own process, my own work, to really begin to appreciate the power and necessity to be an embodied human being. And that ultimately was the embodiment that was going to open up my spirituality in a way that I was longing for.
Many people come to Trillium having already recognized themselves as consciousness. And that's a valid realization. And it's an important recognition. We need a whiff of that realization that, oh, I'm this infinite awareness in order to do this fully embodied consciousness work.
What happens is when we start this Trillium work, the transmission has the effect of bringing us deeper into our bodies, and whatever is preventing us from being more embodied starts to unravel, starts to show up.
And what we mean by embodiment is this fleshy thing, which includes not only bones and tissue and blood, but subtle energies, emotions, our psychological challenges, our ego. So when we talk about doing down work in this work, it's becoming acquainted with and inhabiting that dimension of our being. And it may seem a little strange. Oh, well, I'm already, in this body. But I didn't realize how unhere I was until I had the whole being realization that there's a way we kind of relate to the body, but actually don't quite inhabit it consciously.
Because we all grew up in a Western paradigm. It's a paradigm that we term the hypermasculine dissociation, right? Which is essentially, it's a way of being outside of our bodies. Basically says the head is in charge of everything. We can disconnect from nature. We can govern, control, own nature. The Eastern paradigm is equally as dissociative, right? The Eastern paradigm that I certainly learned as a transcendental meditation teacher is I can gain enlightenment and therefore be detached from suffering and pain. But again, it's another dissociated state. It's not actually being completely embodied and completely present. So this work, Trillium work, is really a completely different path. In many ways, it's a very tantric path because it regards the human experience as the spiritual path, as the growth. And every experience is invited and greenlighted, as we call it, and part of it. There's nothing that gets excluded in this path, which is a whole different way of approaching spirituality. So we essentially start to unravel from this head awareness, this head-centered awareness. We start moving from this hypermasculine dissociation into a heart and body-centered awareness. This is essentially what the whole being realization is. It's a dropping, it's a shifting, it's a landing into a heart and body-centered awareness.
People typically report they feel a sense of dropping into their body in a way that they hadn't felt before. And to them, this brings joy, delight in the sensual reality of being alive, as well as, from time to time, sorrow, discomfort, all the things to which we are subject as humans are alive and and fully present in this awakened life. It's not a refuge to abide in consciousness. It's not a refuge from the slings and arrows of ordinary life in this work.
So we understand embodiment as experiencing ourselves as freedom, as awareness, consciousness, and as a patterned, mortal, struggling human animal, both and, through the body. Local and universal, we're this separate me who also discovers that we're intimately and fundamentally connected.
This awakening in an embodied way could be characterized as living each day as the heartbreaking reality that you are simultaneously being both infinite and finite. And this paradox is kind of unfathomable to the mind, but can be a lived reality in the body.
Being is essentially a body-connected experience. It's not a head-connected experience. And that's why embodiment, the whole being realization, and the sacred reconfiguration is so essential. It actually is a doorway and a connection into being, which is that awareness of consciousness that is so much larger than ourselves, and ultimately the larger wisdom that can hold and run our lives.